All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 10 o'clock and it's a big day here in Omaha, so let's get this thing rolling. We always start our meeting with introductions. I'm gonna look far to my right. Morris, you wanna get us started and work our way around the table?
Yeah, Morris, Nebraska, DOT District 2.
Ed Brooks, Metro.
Austin Wilder, City of Omaha.
Rick Perry, City of Redmond.
Top District, Douglas County.
Jared Walker in DOT Central Office.
Court Barber with MAPA. Andy Wicks, Ottawa County.
Brian Guy, City of Omaha.
Mark McLaughlin, City of Omaha. Eric Williams, Top UNRD. Dave Godey, Ken Bellevue.
Joe Susi, City of Vista.
Alex Evans, City of Philly.
Christy Evans, City of Omaha.
Carlos Morales, Mappa. Go down the back wall.
Julie Harris, White Nebraska. Alex Sig, HDR.
Matt Salinger, JDO. Tim Adams, WSB.
Lindsay Button, Napa.
And I think we probably have some online folks. Now would be the time we've been around the room. If the online folks would like to introduce themselves, please.
Mark Augustine, City of Council Bluffs.
Jeff Subject, City of Omaha.
Dan Carpenter, Benish.
Damian Stern, NDOT District 2.
Are there any more folks online that have not introduced themselves? Okay. Well, we'll move into the action items. The first item is to approve the minutes from the May 22nd meeting. I believe those were available at the front desk and also online. I guess before we look for approval, are there any questions or discussion items on those minutes from May? Seeing no hand, is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the May minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, would be the same sign. Okay, motion is approved. We now have the election of officers for the next fiscal year 2027.
Yes, and I can help take all y'all through that. So right now, we've got two nominees. Eric Williams for chairperson. Eric has accepted the nomination, and then Austin has indicated that he is willing to continue in his position. Todd, I don't know if you're.
I had emailed somebody on your staff.
Okay.
And
Oh, so you
desire
did.
to stay,
All right.
or desire
Then
to
we'll put
run
you-
again, whatever you want to call it, but
Yeah.
yes, I
It might have
guess I
gone to
should-
Matt, and I just didn't see.
I think it was to Matt.
Yeah, Matt's out today, so it's just me. So let's see. Let's see if that one. There we go. And we can take additional nominations if anybody has them. Anybody interested in being chair or vice chair or TTAC. Want to add you to the list.
It's a well-paid position.
We very much appreciate the service that y'all provide to helping us run the team. Well, with that, last year we did this with a mentee poll. We can do that again. I do have one set up, but we can also do this with Joanne's too. I mean, that's kind of, I guess it's kind of up to how you'd like to run it. I don't know if you like doing it with mentee or if you.
My opinion is the mentee poll leaves it as an anonymous voting in that.
That's true.
Probably
That's true.
lets people vote without necessarily having everybody know how they vote, I guess. So if that's quick and easy for you, I think that's a good way to do it.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll bring it up and I'll throw the link onto the front. But I suppose for vice chair, we can leave that to acclamation, given that we only have one person running.
So for vice chair, we can just, if we don't want Austin, we can we can propose it again.
You could,
Right.
that's true, you could.
nominate someone.
You could also nominate someone else, yeah.
Austin's a hell of a lot bigger than me. I should probably be careful.
Oh, I guess I wouldn't even bring it up.
Is this one of those deals, I forget, court that you put a
Yeah.
code up
number
or you
you
just
put
scan
in.
it? Is that right?
Yeah, you'll put a code in your phone, so everybody's gonna go to menti.com, and I'll show that up here in just a moment here. And then there'll be a code for you to enter.
Are we allowing for voting members online to vote, or is this just in the room?
That's just in the room. Mhm. So right up to, that might be a little bit hard to see, so you go to menti.com, menti.com, and the code is 51289791. I know it's a little small.
Vote now. Sorry.
Yes, you can, oh, I guess that's, I mean, yeah, this would be it, yeah, unless somebody wants to. Yeah,
Campaign.
I think this is.
If I'm elected, cheaper lunches.
That's what I'm. 14. I believe that's it, results are in. Oh, wait, oh, I should. Why they don't pop up here?
Leave the option for us.
No, just for vice chair. Showing up on mine. What if I hit that?
You trying to just create anticipation?
Yeah. Keep my survival in suspense.
And recount.
You show up. Like go back to the remote thing, at the HOE.
I mean, there, it shows it there.
Yeah.
Right, so we.
It was
Yeah, why doesn't it show up when it doesn't present?
There's a button for actually.
Results, but there, well, there we are.
Yeah, you see that,
Todd takes it 11-3.
you still need a motion, or how does that work?
I think it might be good if we had a motion for, I guess, like approving the results. And that would be good for the record.
Well, I'll make that motion.
Dave.
Second.
And Austin.
So you have a motion, a second to approve these results. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then Austin is the nominee for vice.
I
We
think
need a motion to accept. So I would make a motion to accept Austin Rouser as vice chair. Second. Have a second, Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay.
I promise to keep the vice chair.
Thanks, Austin.
We have then item number 3, moving on to the final fiscal 2027 tip program, and or who's going to present that?
That's me. All right, so the last month we brought draft tip and asked for a recommendation of the public comment period. That will remain open until June 22nd. So if you hadn't noticed, TTAC is about a week earlier than it normally would be this month. We're next Friday, when it normally would be Juneteenth, federal holiday, MAPA's office will be closed, so that's why we moved it forward a week, but that also means that we're kind of a week ahead of normally where we would be in tip development, so the public comment period is still open. Don't have any comments on it so far, but we'll roll any of those comments that we do receive over the next week into the final tip and present those to our board. Changes so far from the draft. I have updated several entries based on amendments to the 2026 program. So right now I'm kind of managing both programs, this one in development and the previous one that's still live until the end of September. I've addressed comments from Iowa DOT and we also have added Project MAP. Other than that, there hasn't really been anything that's changed between the draft and today. We'll still be doing some kind of cleanup work in the document between now and when it goes forward next week. But that's basically it. We're requesting a motion to recommend approval of the 2027 program, and then ultimately it will go live starting October 1st.
Does anyone have any questions to report on that? Anybody online, no questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve then?
Motion.
Okay, Morris, motion. I would second the approval. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Okay.
Thank you.
We are then finished with action items. We'll move into our discussion item. This is the time in our program, if there's anyone in the room or online who would like to make a comment from the public, now is your chance to do that. Anyone? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll move on to item number 2. Then Jared Walker is going to present the NDOT complete streets.
Yeah, there's a lot of animation. If anyone's seen a Ryan Huff presentation. This is the next slide really doesn't. Abbreviated of Ryan's. If you were at last month's ASCE night conference, Ryan Huff presented on this. It's definitely gonna be longer than what I will go through. Ryan, Brady Neiman and Matt Neiman were really the project managers and leaders throughout this process over the last, honestly, 3+ years now. I'm not gonna go too deep into the motivating factors on what drove NDOT to do this. I think everyone in the room is pretty familiar with complete streets at this point. We know it's safety driven, it's stakeholder driven. Safety is a priority for all of us when it comes to our transportation system. NDOT respects and understands that developing a policy to support these measures is just another step forward in our mission to support safe and efficient transportation on our system for all road users. You can see there it's listed in our LRTP, and other such. Again, our commitment related to safety, the vulnerability of all road users, responsibility is shared, and DOT wants to make clear that we understand our role in that. So really getting into what we did. So starting back in 2023, we started working with Tool Design Group on a research project. From NDOT's perspective, we wanted the policy, we wanted the research even to really dig into an urban context, which when we got into our implementation phase, which I'll talk about in a minute, we really figured out how we wanted to define that. We wanted this to apply to new construction, reconstruction, and bridge projects. We actually ended up adding 3R as we got into the development of our policy. Primarily focus on increasing sidewalk and crossing provisions, and then also develop an improved process for shared use path considerations as it relates to bikes and other alternative transportation. One of the biggest barriers, if you will, that NDOT faced was the concept that cost made this approach prohibitive. It was really the research project that started to open up the eyes of a lot of our leadership. We took a look at the 2024 program book, over 4,000 miles programmed over 6 years. But when we limit it to those certain types of, those urban areas, we found out that we were really looking at less than 300 miles. And then when you limit it to the applicable types of projects, new construction, reconstruction, 3R, and bridge, we were down to about 100, can't see that, about 100 to 150 miles of applicable road miles, which made the concept of cost much more digestible. So getting into early 25, so the last months or so, we've been digging into the actual implementation project itself. We divided the policy approach into two different pieces. We wanted to get an externally facing policy statement out. If you've been to our website, the website address is listed there, but if you just Google NDOT complete streets, NDOT pedestrian and bike infrastructure policy, anything to that effect, it's going to take you to this policy. Admittedly, it is high level, it is public facing, it is very general. You're not gonna get any real direction on the decision-making process itself, but it does lay out the reason why and our commitments and the benefits of this policy. The second phase, which took a lot more time, a lot more detail, is the internal guidance. This is a working document. Yes, we've spent 18 months on it. We are very close to a soft finish line, but it's always going to be a working document. There's always going to be potential for updates to this policy, but it's really intended to guide our district, traffic engineering, roadway design, project development, all those folks in how and when to implement this policy. A number of policy decision paths were identified as we went through the implementation development. And I'll touch on each one of these as we go along. Definition of urban in this policy. Now, honestly, as it relates to MAPA, figuring out what is urban in a city environment was not difficult. Figuring out what urban meant in our smaller communities, our villages, that's when we really had to dig into what different criteria needed to be met. So project location inside or adjacent to corporate limits, surrounding areas that are built up, neighborhoods, retail, offices. Future development plans, looking at planning. Existing cross sections that are urban, obviously including curb and gutter along the roadway. Posted speed limit 45 miles per hour or less. When multiple indicators are present, we are likely to look at this context and consider that it could be urban. There were a lot of could be's and likelies said there, but the intent there is that this is a guideline. It's not meant to be overly prescriptive. To give our engineers and our other SMEs the professional judgment to make decisions as they go along. Deviation considerations. So when to deviate from the policy. Obviously cost, I'll touch on that just a bit more here in a second. And feasibility. So any of these deviation considerations aren't going to just be decided at the district or design level. They are going to go up to the roadway design engineer, Randy Neiman, in consultation with our deputy of engineering, which is now Mick Sislo.
Wait, can you go back?
Yeah.
Can you, I'm trying to get that last deviation request will be cited by.
Deputy of engineering and the roadway design engineer.
Jared, will these slides be available for download from MAP's website, or were they already there to then visit veterans?
Yeah, we don't usually post the slides, but this deck would be up.
I can make this available.
Helpful to not have to scroll level.
You can also use your phone.
Good.
Then I'm gonna get your thing there.
The best. So cost, tool design group did a lot of research. We looked at other standards. And this is ultimately where we settled for now. So when the cost exceeds either 250,000 or 20% of the roadway project in the urban context, that's an important addition there relative to the overall cost of the project. That is when we would consider deviating from the policy. In these circumstances, again, that decision does not rest just with the designer. It would go up to the roadway design engineer for final decision. When the initial costs of that original alternative do exceed those thresholds, NDOC staff will then take the next step to consider reduced investment, other alternatives that might still provide for some additional pedestrian and bike infrastructure, but it may not be sidewalks on both sides of the street or whatever the original alternative was considered. And feasibilities, I believe we'll touch on here in a second. Coordination with local agencies. This starts with the district during project coordination. It's important to note that we want to know that the community actually wants the infrastructure improvement, the pedestrian and bike infrastructure improvement. And we need to know that they will commit to maintaining it. If they don't want it, then we will work to get documentation from them so that we can clearly show that there was a local decision made to not move forward with the pedestrian and bike improvement.
Is there an anticipated method by which the local jurisdiction determines interest? I mean, are you prescriptive in saying we need you to survey people, have a public meeting, something like that? Or is letter from local public agency sufficient to say, we have determined and NDOT will accept? They say they determined, it's up to them to make the determination.
More the latter there, Eric. If the LPA ultimately comes to us and says based on our decision making, whether it is cost or the community just didn't want it, or they didn't want to build a connection to it that would support the overall network. There are a lot of different reasons that the LPA could choose. We would just ask them to document that and send it to us from an authorized individual within the LPA.
So allowing local decision making about preference and then documenting, not prescriptive to tell people what they have to do.
Right.
Retaining local control, got it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Do we also have a formal agreement for like the roadways too, when NDOT does that? Just wondering, sorry. Right, cause when NDOT goes in and let's take M92 for example, right? A road widening of 4 lanes, right? A 2-lane to a 4-lane. Going through Yantown and some of the other communities, does NDOT require that the local agencies maintain that portion of M92? And do this kind of thing? For the roadway or not? And just separating out roadway, bike and ped, just what exists today, I guess.
Honestly, I don't know. Damien, are you on? Do you have a response to that?
I can tell you from my previous experience in Omaha, that Omaha maintains a portion of several state highways. Because the way the state looks at it is, this is a 2-lane highway from here to here. In Omaha, it becomes a 4-lane highway, so you pay
The city is
50%.
responsible.
Correct. You pay 50% of, because it's twice as big as it needs to be for our state traffic that in this large metropolitan area. That's how that has historically worked. I don't know about some of the small communities, but Auburn's a good example. If you're on Highway 75 South, you get into Auburn, it becomes a 4-lane through the city, and it goes back to a 2-lane shortly thereafter. So I don't know how they do that in a smaller community like that.
I can follow up and get more for you, promise. That last bullet is just how the decisions will be documented within NDOT's internal process. Effective date and timeline for implementation. So we will begin to fully employ this policy with projects that are programmed for FY31 and beyond. However, we have already begun to consider incorporating it into approved projects from FY28 and 30 that are not beyond a certain level of design. Unlikely for this policy to impact anything that is programmed for construction in FY27 at this stage. Matthew Mara, who is in our roadway design group, has already done an assessment and estimates that there's about 24 projects between 28 and 30 that may be eligible in this policy. And again, that's statewide, that is not relative to the MAPA region alone. Important to note, this policy does not commit NDOT to implementing standalone pedestrian and bike infrastructure projects or retrofitting previous projects. This is for larger roadway projects into the future. Sidewalks, the starting point for our design work will be looking at sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. That's where they will begin with their estimates and considerations. However, there are times when this is unnecessary or infeasible. Either side of the roadway is underdeveloped, or agricultural lands, open spaces, industrial uses where the traffic does not need it, basically. Or when a parallel or adjacent local road, the sidewalks. Lastly, when significant constraints are present, and I think we get into design constraints, cost constraints, other things that end up being for a variety of reasons. This goes back to that cost discussion when sidewalks on each side are deemed infeasible. We should continue to look at, does a sidewalk on at least one side of the roadway work? We would look to put that on the side with the fewest constraints, most demand, avoiding alternating sides, obviously not creating crossings across the highway for no reason. And again, deviations will be documented. Saying that it's not address existing, it's meant to address new infrastructure. Crossing enhancement process, this is again, we wanted to avoid being prescriptive. We are ultimately going to yield discretion to the engineer away from enhanced crossing being bound to specific locations. We don't want prescriptive policies dictating. We want to actually look at demand and need for enhanced crossings. Bicycle accommodation approach. Be honest, about halfway through the research project, we determined that bike lanes, bike ways would not be a defined piece of our policy. That does not mean they won't be in the future. Again, this is always going to be a working document. We did identify a plan for shared use paths as a potential bicycle facility site though. These shared use paths would ultimately take the place of a sidewalk on a particular side of the roadway if that was the case.
So eliminated from consideration to be added to a project when constructed, but that does not mean that they are eliminated from consideration for parallel construction. I mean, I just want to be clear that the second part there indicates that you do not have a policy that says we will explicitly not accept bike lanes and bike ways. Shared use, well, and maybe you mean different things here. Shared use path, shared parallel, separate from bike lane, bike way, within curves. Is that right?
Can you restate that?
I would say generally bike lane and bike way, I interpret between the curves. And shared use path generally behind the curb in a way, so you are accommodating of shared use path or trail outside of drive lanes, but not considering inclusion of things on road.
There was no change to NDOT's policy regarding bikeways, bike paths as they currently are. Like this does not override anything that is currently in our policies. Just another piece relating to the shared use path. Again, coordination with local agencies must have adequate right of way, and local agencies have to commit to maintaining the shared use paths.
So, right away, does this go all the way up to include, for example, interstate right of way? Would interstate right of way be eligible for consideration of a shared use path within right of way significantly away from travel lanes? Or is that a separate consideration?
I will need to get you a response to that.
Sure.
I don't.
And I know there's not that many locations, but there are some places.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. if you don't mind following up with me.
Yeah. Yep, there's a couple other, I mean, like, highways in cities are another place where there was generous right of way. Maple, one example, very right of way. So is it eligible for Hidden's path outside of the drive lanes? Sure.
I would think that interstate, the first requirements you have, like under 45 miles an hour. I feel like
Maybe I missed that earlier.
the interstate would, I don't know. Those requirements. Like urban environment, because I've read.
We'll need to follow up. I
I got clarification to
in
figure
touch
out.
with, Brandy or Matt tomorrow.
What type of potential bicycle pedestrian facility is eligible and what type of gravel road, right?
Jared, can you talk about how the established need for bicycle infrastructure is decided? What factors determine whether or not there is a need?
Julie, I'll have to follow up with you on that. I wasn't really involved in the research part of this project. So, and I believe that's when a lot of those discussions were held. So I'm happy to, we could probably set up a time to talk, maybe pull Ryan into that conversation, because he would have a lot more of that context. Internal documentation considerations, this is all part of our internal process. This is part of the traffic engineering and design evaluation of the consideration. So the project vitals, the presence of existing sidewalks, crossings, paths, those locations of businesses, schools, parks, things that will generate the traffic that could dictate whether or not the need is there. And then these are some of the decisions that would be documented, whether something is added or not.
So what if a local community has a active mobility plan? Is that also taken into consideration?
I think that's gonna go when the district is working with them during project initiation, and they're talking about the overall network and the community commitment.
Just because it doesn't exist today, but it's planned for in the future with a bike plan or whatever, to enhance that connectivity. Yeah, it wouldn't show up in the inventory of existing today, and therefore, like, based on that, like, if it doesn't exist today, we're not gonna keep it going forward. But if there is a plan, I think that should elevate that conversation.
And I would add transit to that as well. Future transit plans need to be considered.
Speaking of taking a picture of the screen, this is blurred out for a reason. This is a process map of what our staff will use to go through and make that decision. And this is a working document, so I apologize, but I hope you can respect why this was done this way. A lot of thought was put into this, but again, it is a working process that could change. So we're hesitant to anyone taking a picture of it or grabbing the presentation and running with it. Final next steps, trainer teams, which this has already begun. We've told our district staff and our regulated design, our traffic engineering staff, and Ryan, Brandy, and Matt have gone through trainings with all of them. Reviewing current projects for opportunities. I mentioned Matt Kumar has already done that. That will continue. And then begin to apply this policy to the 31 program going forward. Any other questions? Yes, but Julie.
So the $250,000 or 20% threshold. Is that a firm go or no go, and then everything else after that? So what happens if there's a project that is over that 250,000, 20%? How likely is it that going through these other considerations would elevate it above? I'm just wondering, how firm is that dollar percentage amount compared to the other documentation that is needed for some of these projects?
So I can say that the dollar and the percentage amount is a guideline. It will not be a hard. If we're at 21%, it's a no. We will completely pass on that particular alternative. They will look at the other considerations, they'll elevate it to Brandy, they'll have a conversation about what the community's needs are, the community's commitment, what the future plans are. What could come about. It's also going to generate conversations about other alternatives that may be more cost effective, but still serve the community. Does that get to answering your question, Julie? It's not a hard number, I can promise you that. And it is, we spent a lot of time making sure we define it as that part of the urban context. So if there's a 10-mile project that only 2 miles of it is going into the community. We have to look at only that 2 miles and base the percentage there. But we're also going to consider the impact of that improvement, that bike and ped improvement as it relates to the community just within those limits.
And I have another question, kind of going back to what Eric said earlier about the documentation, if a local community, if somebody from the local community says we don't want this. What type of documentation, what type of information are they required to submit? Along with that, we don't want this letter. What are they required to demonstrate that they have done to show why it's not wanted?
And at what level of authority within that jurisdiction can that decision be made?
Yeah, my understanding is it has to be, I mean, you're talking city council, county commissioner, or that level of authority, or a resolution that demonstrates that the governing board has assigned authority to an individual to make that determination. What criteria has to be gone through, public involvement or whatever, I don't know. And I believe we're not trying to be prescriptive about that. If the LPA, the authorized individual comes forward and provides documentation that the local community does not want it and is not going to maintain it, is not going to sign an agreement that they would maintain it, then I think we're going to take that as, okay, we're not going to invest in building.
What is the, I know it's urban focused, but if in specific context of a transportation management area, is there anything that like how does is the MPO involved? How does that?
So I don't know if you're getting to cost share. I'll be perfectly transparent. I removed the cost share piece from this because I don't want to speak to that. I don't want to mislead anyone in the room around that. More direction on that could be sought from honestly Brandy and her team. But as far as the NPO's role,
I guess the cost share piece is definitely interesting. I'm more talking about the context of our metropolitan transportation plan. And this is probably something that, this will come up as we're developing trips and, like what's the coordination piece if it's in the TMA and, we need to include this project in the MTP, does it line up with the goals and objectives of the region and, ultimately some of the stuff will probably come through this body. I think that like tips are being approved, like I guess, how does it fit?
I mean, I would assume the coordination would be similar to your coordination on general roadways, because you're gonna have roadways that cross jurisdictions. It's the same way you'll have the pedestrian infrastructure that would cross. So I guess I would think it would mirror.
Okay.
That.
Yeah, and just getting back to this, requiring local communities and this threshold in play. For me, a real world example is how are we gonna treat N92, right? that one seems to go through counties, so we would require the counties to maintain the pedestrian section of the bridge. And the bridge I'm talking about is going over the Platte, right? So that would be Douglas County who would have to maintain the sidewalks and our bikeways on that. And then on the other side would be Saunders County, right?
Saunders is west.
Yeah. So the counties would have to assume maintenance responsibility for the sidewalks connecting this segment. And then the city, so maintaining multiple maintenance agreements for just the bike and ped sections.
That is how I would interpret the maintenance requirement of the infrastructure piece, yeah.
But the upfront design and construction costs would be incorporated into the NDOT project at NDOT costs, or you
Project cost.
project costs?
As far as N92 goes, like crossing the Platte's not in an urban area, like
Yeah,
NDOT
that's-
can consider putting a bike facility in that section.
And
That's
I
my
think that's
understanding.
that's a subtle point, that's an important connection in and out of the counties, right? That's a link between, and one of the few links that would be viable for bike and ped connections. To some of the smaller communities along N92.
And that might be something where this policy influences decision making on something that where the policy doesn't actually apply. But we see, but we have criteria, we have a decision making process that can help guide that separate decision.
I guess one thing that's a little confusing is that, so, we're hearing that NDOT will include that in the design and construction of the project, but we continue to be asked to pay for sidewalk infrastructure that goes in on some of the highway projects, so I'm still not having a lot of clarity on who's actually responsible for design and building. Because we're hearing kind of different things from, maybe what the policy says we're presenting versus what conversations we're having at the project level. Who is responsible for that construction, and even with, relative to bridges. I think one of the things that continues to come up is, even if you got a local jurisdiction that is okay with funding construction and it says, yes, we'll take on maintenance, yes, we'll make connections for pedestrian infrastructure on this bridge. And then the project team from NDOT comes back to us and says, well, if we're gonna put in this pedestrian infrastructure, we need a girder. And that becomes very excessive to say we're gonna fund a girder, and then to look at the cross sections of the bridge, 12 or 15-foot median that has no traffic on it. It begs the question of, is that girder really needed? What is NDOT actually paying for? What are we actually responsible for paying for? Are these all things that the agency just takes up for granted? Is that? Because if, bridges become urgent, because if we miss that opportunity, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right. The need may not exist today, but the need is coming at some point.
Within the expected lifetime of the structure. I mean, that's really the question up front, and I am very interested in this as well, I appreciate the policy, and I do think there are a couple of specifics. The flyover bridge bill we just did was accommodated on the piers, girders replaced by NDOT, and local constructed, but there are a few additional projects that are somewhere in the early 31 or after timeline, so in 92, excellent example. The other one was the discussion about Highway 50 from Louisville, where there was just some discussion in letters from locals about if NDOT is going to expand capacity on Highway 50, potentially a second structure, will the pedestrian features be included at the time of the design and construction of the new structure? That was functionally the request. So I guess that feels like a kind of what I would consider one of the highest priorities here is when major decisions are made that would be extremely difficult to bring additional facilities, connectivity, like that connectivity on later. What can we do to help make sure that we get that done at the same time? And if that's going to mean the locals have to accept, we're paying for the additional girder, we're paying for all the additional materials, everything else on the pedestrian facility. I mean, I guess it's helpful to know that, but it's more of an ask from the locals Sure. Then it's part of the project cost, because there's a policy that says we support bicycle, pedestrian, active transportation. When we are building a structure, it includes active transportation.
I'm going to sound completely evasive in my response to all of that. But I don't know. That's why I didn't come to talk about cost share. I didn't come to talk about any specific projects. Because that's gonna have to be discussed starting with the district and then working forward into design. We intentionally did not get overly prescriptive in the development of all of this policy because, again, we know that every project's gonna be different. Every project's gonna have current need and future need considerations that we're gonna have to be agile.
Well, and again, I want to reiterate appreciation for the way that MDOT has been approaching this. Again, the 3475 structure did plan for this. It was a little difficult to get it done on the back end, but that was very proactive 20 years ago and then again. And there's some future opportunities, and everyone from MDOT has been very supportive of considering how will we make this work going forward. Clarity is helpful to determine, are the local agencies who want to see this accomplished going to be looking at a potentially several multi-million-dollar projects at our expense, or do we anticipate this being included as part of the design and constructing with the MDOT project? Just so there's clarity on, do we need to aim for that long term, or is that already included? So I appreciate the consideration there and the work from everybody, including the owners.
I think the one part of my question you probably can't answer is, so when we run into these issues, it sounds like what you're saying is that's a conversation you have. Randy, she's the final decision maker on that.
Brandy and Nick are gonna be where the buck stops, if you will. Julie?
Yeah, go ahead. Circling back again to the 250,000 or 20%. I mean, you started this process on this policy in 2023. Costs have gone up exponentially just since then. Is that $250,000 threshold gonna be something that escalates with realistic inflation and tariffs and who knows what all? Or is that gonna remain static and everything else is gonna get more expensive and we're just gonna get stuck at that level?
Again, working document, so it can always be increased. Yeah, we're gonna have to be agile with inflation, but that's why we have the 20% measure as well. If it's a very large project, that's $1,000 may not represent a large percentage. Or vice versa.
Right, but you can appreciate that if they can also then say, oh, it's over $250,000, forget it, we're not gonna do it. It's not,
My understanding is it's the larger of the two.
okay, that helps to clarify.
I believe that's how we're intending to apply it.
Okay, thank you.
So is it to remain sort of in the working document phase for an unknown period of time and working out it through various projects, how policy plays out, or do you guys kind of have a timeline for when it will move from a working document to an official document?
We are done working with the consultant, so there's no real, I wouldn't say policy development continuing to go. Now it will just be implementing it, addressing the hiccups as we go, figuring out some of the places where there are still gaps that need to be addressed. It is my understanding that this actually isn't going to be fully incorporated into the design manual. It's going to be there are going to be guidelines that guide decision making throughout the process from district to project initiation all the way through design and construction.
So does that mean it won't be required to go through this process for projects? Is that what you're saying?
If the criteria applies, then the staff will be required to go through that decision making.
So it is part of the official process, it's not just a guideline that maybe you will do this, okay, yes.
Are there any other questions?
I've never been happier to miss TTAC.
Yeah, it sounds
Just-
like
District 2, I have talked to a couple of you guys about this, but District 2 has, with implementing this policy, has a lot of applications, and every one of them I think is going to be applied on a case by case basis. And I've gotten my own pushback from the administration about certain locations. So I think this is going to require conversations as we come across them. Each one of them is going to be unique. But I'm just as confused to let you guys know.
Well, I think that was the last question. And if so, yeah. Gonna start more with our member PTC updates. So Morris, would you start? Introductions, would you like to start us with that as well?
Let's see, the 480 bridge over Missouri. We stopped the work, we took the barriers off, they're not going back up. The project manager said there's like 4 nights worth of work to be done to finish that job. So that'll be after the series, it'll be night work too. Let's see, 72nd L, that's ongoing. Not almost 680 northbound Pacific to Dodge. You know, we're adding a lane, northbound lane, starting Monday, the 15th. That Pacific Street Bridge will be reduced to 1 lane in each direction. We're gonna be working on the bridge deck. First off, we'll stop the traffic to the outside lanes. It will be doing deck repair in the middle of the bridge. And then when that's done, we start shifting the traffic back and forth.
That's 24 hours a day, they're restricting it to 1 lane.
Yeah.
Killing me, Morris.
Yeah. Once we get the deck closed, we start chipping holes to the repair of the deck.
Yeah.
Let's see, Highway 50. Nebraska going to Louisville. They've got the bridge deck removed on the west half of the bridge over the Burlington Northern tracks. They're just starting to do the mill and overlay, starting at Highway 1 working north. No, they put in a turn lane at Church Road going southbound to westbound. We just started I-80, the drainage problem at 96. That's off the road, so we're not bothering anybody there. Let's see. 275 and West Dodge roundabout. We're putting those in piece by piece into the roundabout. That's completely closed. We'll keep that closed till we're done. There's a detour marked for it. We got some night work on 80 from Nebraska 50 to 50th Street. That's ongoing now. It's all night work. It's pavement repairs and patching. Same thing, Platte River to Millard. We got the same night work, pavement repair, cross stitching, diamond grinding. Highway 36 from 133 to 132nd. We've closed 36 at 100. Nebraska 133. That's completely closed. They're working on the bridge. Once they get the bridge done, they'll start working west on the roadway, mill and overlay. Highway 75, Bellevue Bridges, those 3 bridges down there south of Menards. We're working on them. They have to be, everything has to be opened up by the time the off and air show comes. So they were gonna start working on both directions. They said they couldn't get that all done at once before the air shows. We're working on southbound. We get that done, everything opens up while the air show is going on. We got I-80 72nd to 84th westbound. That'll start after the College World Series. I found out that'll be July 6th. It's the off-ramp repair and then mill overlay. And that's night work. 6 weeks more or less. And let's see. Yeah, that should be it. Questions?
No retro.
Couple quick updates on some projects I've talked about, 35th Hamilton. Roundabout is, we have a good bit of mainline paving down that now, so that project is moving along pretty well. Had one kind of utility conflict that got resolved. Not with that fight. Got that. A bridge deck got poured on Farm Street. So we're still tracking in early August. Opening date for the Farnham Street Bridge over 480. It's moving along well. I didn't mention this last month, so I think I'm a little month behind, but we are fully open on the 72nd Street Bridge with the so a little less impact there before you get down to L Street. Resurfacing's kicked off, put down a bunch of new asphalt. That's all I have. Right now, everything's the year of design, so 2027, we probably have about $100 million work coming up, so. With joint ventures with DOT and everything else.
This is for everybody in the room. OPPD is asking Douglas County to reimburse them for a relocation on a project because they feel that SIDs are now economic development rather than transportation expansion. And in this conversation, I was told, well, everybody else has already agreed to this. Sarpy County, City of Omaha, everybody's agreed to this. I said, well, I don't think that's probably the case. So I would like to see the agreement that you're gonna base this on. Until then, I'm going by state law. So if any of you would like to discuss that with me afterward, I'd be open to discussing that. But historically, might be the oldest guy in the room, close to it anyway. Historically, we have not paid for utility relocation in this region as a result of roadway expansion. I know the streetcar has brought about some different discussions because it's not necessarily transportation related, it's economic development related. And I suspect they're trying to. Well, I understand, I'm on your side, but I'm sharing this because this conversation just happened. I've already talked with county legal and our commissioner about it. And they're both calling, I'm not gonna use that word, they're both saying, no, I don't think that's gonna happen. So if there's other folks in this room that have agreed to pay OPPD and MUD for utility relocations as part of your roadway widening projects, I would like to discuss that.
So sorry, OPPD and MUD?
Well, it's just OPPD that we're having this discussion, if it will apply to one, it'll apply to the other. They both have publicly owned utilities and public rental, so. It would add substantially to our bottom line costs and reduce substantially the amount of projects we go. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I'm bringing it up because it's been brought up. So. Project wise, QF and Harrison all west of 204th, I've kind of shared this the last couple of months. We think we see an opportunity if we can get Harrison forward in time that we can then close Q Street west of 204th to do that phase of the project without doing the crossover, which will save us all the time and money if we can work with the same contractor. So I'm not sure what their motivation is, right? But we're trying to accomplish that. Getting Harrison done sooner so we can close Q, we can't both close at the same time. 204th and Fort has been let. Start in August. That's going to be turn lanes on the state highway and then 4th Street, obviously east west, and a signal. We normally try to do that stuff in the summertime when school's out, but unfortunately this year, because of the way the project was broken out, it's going to happen after school starts. It looks like the majority of it, but it will be relatively quick. So we will get that signalized and up and running before winter. 4th Street's gonna wait a little longer because of some issues with the NRD and the dam and some things that are being worked out. It's gonna be a couple of years down the road, but we are going to asphalt that section under the city's overlay contract. We're adding onto that to take that, whatever it'll be, 5/8 3/4 of a mile of gravel right adjacent to that school and get asphalt down. Because we just can't keep up with it, the traffic's gotten so heavy, so that's the major stuff.
Everything, I mean, everything is going well with coordination with the NRD. Is there anything else you need from us?
Oh, no, it's going well, no, it's going fine, it's just, it's the dam. We kind of thought at first that it would be a quick resolution, well, the golf course is on the south side. And when you have one party that says, we don't want to be impacted, like, at all.
Yeah.
So you deal with it on the north side. That made it more difficult than the NRD, to looking at, I'm not a water guy, so I can't get into a great amount of detail, but no, the NRD is not a problem, it's just that the level of concern has kind of grown and having to deal with all of it. So I think we've got a concept picked out now, but it's just, we came to the conclusion it's not gonna get done this year, period. So we're gonna spend some money, we're gonna asphalt overlay this thing to get us a paved road, and then in 27 or 28, probably 28, maybe 29, when we build the ultimate section, we'll salvage as much of it as we can for underlay material, but we just can't tell the public out there one more year, hey, sorry, you're gonna drive on gravel again. It's thousands of cars a day on that section of Fort using it in school. It's not.
You say one more time, Fort, where was the location?
Between 204th and 192nd.
Thanks.
Nothing from.
We are getting 14 miles of Tamarack Avenue. It's on northeast side of the county. And the late start date is July 8th. Contractor just told us they can't start until late September. So hopefully we get that rebate.
I'll just mention that I heard Military Avenue's back open. I've got some perk, so you live in that part of town, good news. Pretty cool, that's all I got.
No case complaining.
So the PAP NRD has been studying a new corridor kind of north, and the intention is to go from Keystone all the way to Riverfront. We're calling the study Sorenson to Riverfront. This connects to the Girard project, which I mentioned last month that was completed and opened. That's kind of one section, one portion of the entire 5-mile corridor. So we went out on the first walkthroughs on the rail section and then along Forest Lawn Creek. There are some portions that are extremely high potential. There are some portions that are much more complicated. Trying to prioritize the high potential locations and get them moving quickly. But there's also a very interesting kind of road that never happened along Forest Lawn Ave. North Omaha history has some indication here. There's something along the creek that we haven't really been able to figure out exactly what it was, but it seems like somebody was gonna build a road and never did, but it's graded, so potential for a combined transportation corridor there. Very interesting walkthroughs, looking forward to moving those projects ahead. We have an RFP out for historic Florence Trail connection from the Florence Community Center up to the mill and over to Pershing and Riverfront Trail. Those proposals will be reviewed and we'll begin to negotiate after our board meeting in July rather than June. The NRD is the local sponsor working with MAPA on the Heartland 2050 funded e-moto policy study. So I'm reminded to all jurisdictions that if you have challenges with new devices, that contract is supposed to be at the MAPA board in June to begin legitimate policy research and development in July, with the anticipated timeline being about 9 months. The intention is to provide language that can be used in other jurisdictions to help indicate where people should and should not be. You know, there's a lot of this happening, but all the steps by MAPA, the NRD, and the consultants are moving forward to get some policy available with the potential for something to the legislature in the end of the fall to be ready for next year if necessary. If you have any feedback about e-motos or other devices in your jurisdiction, feel free to reach out to MAPA staff or myself. We're glad to take that into the policy development so we can get something that helps to address what is a rapidly increasing concern kind of everywhere with new devices.
Eric, when you say e-motor, you're talking about the little electric dirt bikes, basically, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
And are you looking at whether they should be on recreational trails or where their proper place is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, the main challenge being, I mean, you have bicycles and electric assist bicycles, you have cars and motorcycles, and then there is a kind of sliding scale between the two, and it's even more difficult to say you are a human powered vehicle, you should be on a trail, or you are a licensed motor vehicle, you can and should be on a road. In the middle, which direction should varying levels of devices be going? I mean, also there's gas powered things that are doing this as well. There just seems to be a general sense of, you know, when it's enforcing against using motorized vehicles on trails, we can just do it. And the law enforcement agencies have indicated, we don't think we have sufficient authority to do enforcement for varying types of devices. And also they're very difficult to physically catch, so what are different strategies?
They are very
Yeah.
hard to catch.
If you're not gonna take a police car down the trail to catch a dirt bike on the trail. So, I mean, the policy will almost certainly involve some indication of there needs to be some more personal responsibility, particularly from adults who are purchasing devices that children are operating, because age is a huge factor in the safety of this. You know, a 13-year-old on a highly powered electric motorcycle or dirt bike on a trail is dangerous for them and dangerous for others. But we don't really have good clarity on whether or not that should or should not be on the trail or on the road or in another off-road location.
And there was a fatality on one of those not too long ago,
Yeah.
near 156th and Dodge or Maple. So it's affecting everyone.
So yes, policy development is in process. We know this is a priority. Sarpy County had a news story in a meeting with their sheriff maybe last week. So MAPA and the NRD are glad to be collaborating on this. A huge portion of the work will be taking stakeholder input from all jurisdictions so that policy development can have something that can be implemented. Because we would like to get to uniform policy across the metro area so we do not end up with different rules in different places where users aren't familiar that they've crossed from one jurisdiction to another. Now may or may not be in compliance. But again, timeline is begin in July, get something done by about next spring, then be able to be implemented by next summer when people will be out again, out of school and out on the trails.
Hey, Eric, quick question, will there be any recommendations on classification of these vehicles in crash reports? 'Cause I don't think there's a good way for NDOT classifying right now, so I don't know if they'll be part of this.
And I have to get some more clarity there, possibly. This also came up at the Transportation Alternative Program Committee meeting for the potential inclusion of more data collection as part of the policy guide for future call for projects out of the TTAC anticipated at the end of this year. So those two are kind of working together as how are we going to get the appropriate amount of data, and then how are we going to incorporate it into policy and future projects and the funding, the criteria for selection of projects. And then lastly, appreciation to the Sarpy County for coordinating connectivity between Chapel Hills and MOPAC, specifically as part of the, it's called Build Sarpy, is that the name? Sarpy Connect, what's the word? Connect Sarpy, okay. Connect Sarpy, yeah, is incorporating a crossing at 168th Street over I-80 to get from Chalco over to MOPAC. And then construction of trail along the north side of Schramm will close that gap from the big regional connector to the big regional recreation area. And the NRD will cost share on a portion of that, and then start building some of the rest. So it's great to see that connection getting implemented. And it is all because of the traffic signal crossing at Highway 50, which allows the new type of bicycle and pedestrian facilities to be connected because of that intersection. So that is an example of a like good policy that intersects projects constructed by DOT that, you know, that's why I'm so interested in where that goes. So thanks again to Sarpy for that. Appreciate their approach.
To follow up on your e-bike. I just found out the other day, our police chief and city attorney are working with the county attorney. And they're drafting, and I think it's gonna be brought to the city council for initial review next week. And essentially, they said the same things as what's an e-bike. They kind of narrowed it down to anything with pegs and no pedals. But that doesn't include scooters and things like that, sorts of. But they've been working with the county attorney on doing something with that, at least in Bellevue.
Sounds good. I'd be glad to talk about how that overlaps with other future policy development and how we can support that.
Yeah.
It's likely
And maybe they have worked with someone at the NRD, I don't know.
Yeah, do you have contact info for folks to reach out to you about that?
There would be last in Ken, the police chief.
Of Bellevue?
Yes. His last name escapes me, it should have been, yeah.
Sorry, we will talk to Ken.
Yes, he's the one that brought it up at the meeting the other day, we had a pre-cut, so. Normally this report would be done by John Krager, but John Krager has retired. So next meeting I'll be a little more prepared, and we are seeking an engineer at the moment, so if anyone knows of anyone that is looking, have them look me up. active projects we got going is our Mission Avenue streetscape. I kind of follow up on Todd's comments. Yes, we're having problems with the utilities. It's delayed this project for months. And yeah, same type of issues that you're discussing.
I'll jump back in, because this is important and it is costing all of us. Our project at 186th and Idaho, it's been on the radar for years. It got let, it's been awarded to a contractor. And OPPD called and said, well, we never looked at that, we didn't know anything about it. We were able to provide them with 2 years of documentation of it being presented at utility meetings.
I've been
They never, and I'm not here to bash on OPPD, but I don't know how we as a community get this changed, because they're literally Q Street, that's the reason Q Street's not done.
Yeah,
They didn't bother to look at the plan until the project was let, and you're set for failure.
yeah, I was hounding my staff, I hounded the engineers, and they followed up on it as far as like 2-3 years ago, making sure that they had plans, and here we are.
We're experiencing the exact same thing. It's unacceptable.
Yeah,
It's costing our taxpayers all
very frustrating. Other project under construction is 36th Street from Platteview Road north. Primarily right now, kind of north of Sneakloth Road is where they're primarily working. Other projects underway are our rehabs and overlays that we're working on. I want to bring it up because the bridge just came up. Our house study is nearing complete on the Fort Creek Road Bridge over Backfield Creek. We had a catastrophic failure, I guess you could call it, where we had to close the bridge permanently. Working with our consultant, one of them's in the room here today, is getting, as far as getting house study finished and then moving forward with our next steps on that particular bridge. I know that caused some complications on the Kennedy Freeway, Highway 75. I drive that way every day and it's frustrating. This morning was a long line of traffic and it's Friday. Yeah. Yeah. And yes, last night going south was even worse. I was going north, but wasn't good.
So the design effort there is to replace the Fort Crook structure over the new path?
Yes, replace them both entirely. Now the northbound is open, southbound is closed, but we'll replace them entirely. Other than that, just moving forward with everything else, got a lot of projects started. That's all I have.
New traffic signal installation at 99th and Giles is complete. 84th Street Bridge and Trail project is still ongoing. We're hoping the southbound bridge section will be finished at about 45 days. We'll flip it over and start the north side at that point in time. That's all.
Right, Papillion, we're still underway, prelim design for our 2 phases of our STBG project on Pearl Road. The underpass as well. We're in the middle of our pavement repair and UBAS overlay project, our 7th year. So we've had really good success and have a decently old overlay of that UBAS on the residential streets from about 7 years ago, and we've been very happy with the results of that, longevity of that. So that's great. We are going through the mayor's neighborhood, so wish me luck this year. We also got 90th Street closed for reconstruction from 370 north to Grunther. As part of that Tower District SID there, overrun the project. And then we are about to award contract for design on a trail expansion project from First Street in Washington / 84th Street east to 72nd Street. So that'll be nice to get underway as well. There'll be a trailhead and then trail expansion there. We've been working with the NRD over here. I'm sure you're aware. And then unrelated, I finished water tower painting downtown there, or just east of downtown there. So that was good. Only had a handful of angry voicemails about it. So
You finished it? Did you do it yourself?
yeah, I was up there rolling at the weekends.
Honestly, the price came out too high, you
I probably would have done it. And then Papillion Days, come check out our new city park improvements downtown on Father's Day weekend. If you're looking for something fun to do, so that's all I got.
No updates.
Gary, we appreciate you coming in and talking about Cuming Street. Very informative. I just wanna say thanks. You know, I think it's a very important step. Additional questions do remain, and I think we're opening up this conversation as it is very important to the entire region and how that's gonna be applied. Dean and Austin, thanks for like sharing your thoughts. I think there is definitely more that we're gonna have to dig into and try to understand, and hopefully we can use this as a forum to do that. Just quick updates, learning site visit from MAPA, those that went to Detroit heard it was a great trip for many that were able to go. If you're interested, happy to share more details on future adventures, which include Salt Lake City in 2 years or next year or something like that. As far as our work, we will continue to do our trips work. We're currently negotiating with a consultant team to help us do some of the initial inventory. So I think that is gonna be predominantly feeding the work that we're doing. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to share with this group some of the initial data analysis that we're doing for the regional freight plan. I know certain communities want to learn more about what's going on with that. We'll be able to present, and obviously a lot of the work with the e-motos and e-bikes is going to come through. So lots of work, lots of fires and balls in the air, but we'll keep you posted as we go forward. That's it.
Anything from the gallery back here? Anyone want to add? Is there any additional business anybody would like to touch on or cover? Seeing none, if there is a motion to adjourn, we'll call this done. Second. Have a motion second. All those in favor? Enjoy the CWS. Enter. Sir, you bet. Baseball game. Soccer game.